Spoiler warning, this video will spoil all of the events of the first 3 seasons of The Wheel of Time and its corresponding books, so books 1 through 4 of The Wheel of Time. Siuan Sanche is ranked 7th in my all-time character ranking list for The Wheel of Time. And in a series with over 2,000 named characters and 147 unique POVs, that's actually saying something. And in light of our season 3 finale, I wanted to give non-book readers a glimpse of who Siuan was in the books and how that differed from who she was in the show. Now, I never disliked Siuan's actress. It was more just like I never paid a ton of attention to her in the first few seasons. Like I thought she was fine, she was good, she was just never the standout for me compared to some of the other actors and actresses. But for some reason in season 3, her and Leanne just shot to the top of my list. Perhaps it was because finally they gave her something interesting to do, but all of a sudden I saw the book Siuan spring to life. The quiet strength, the no-nonsense attitude. Her chemistry with Leanne also felt so spot on. The deep friendship that was also predicated on honesty and not getting away with anything. So when the deposing happened, I was actually kind of excited. Here, finally, this amazing actress, Sophie Okonedo, was going to do the story beats next season that had made me fall in love with Siuan in the first place and made her one of my favorite characters of all time in The Wheel of Time. Siuan survives to book 14 of The Wheel of Time. Okay. Actually, once I had a few days to process this and think about it, I think the choice to kill Siuan actually makes a lot of sense for the show, based on story beats they've already covered that were different from the books and that they gave to other characters, and based on just number of episodes and timing, and that they probably wouldn't have a lot of time to explore Siuan's backstory anyway, that perhaps ending her story here would have a greater impact emotionally and for a lot of characters in the show. However, I'm excited to share with you today her journey in the books because they encompass some of my favorite scenes of the entire series, and so I'm happy to share it even if her story ended a little differently in the show. I also want to say, for book readers that are here, a lot of the stuff I share about Siuan's early life, particularly before she becomes the Amyrlin seat, comes not from the main 14 books, but either from the prequel New Spring or from the reference guide, The Wheel of Time Companion. Let's start from the beginning with Siuan's childhood, mostly the flavoring of what you get in the show. Siuan was born in Tyr to a family of a humble fisherman. Her mother died in childhood and her father died while she was away at the tower. She went to the tower when she was just 15 years old, and she only spent 3 years as a novice and 3 years as an accepted before being raised to the Shawl or becoming full Aes Sedai, that's what they call it, being raised at 21 years old. Obviously, that might not seem short in terms of the show, but you have to understand that our characters like Nynaeve and Egwene, who were novices for such little time, is shown to be a very unique situation in the novels, and I think they show it appropriately in the show too, that it's very unique based on the timing of how dire things are towards the last battle. But previously, like back when Moiraine and Siuan were in the tower, those things usually took a long time. There's also a focus on talents in the book, that many Aes Sedai have special talents. For example, you might think of Egwene in the show and her ability to dreamwalk, which actually isn't an Aes Sedai talent. We've gotten off track. Siuan's talent was in particular that she could see and sense Ta'averen. Now, they haven't focused a ton on Ta'averen since the first season, but in the novels, that's a way bigger focus. So when she sees people like Mat and Rand and Perrin, she can see this glow around them that they will have grand impact on the pattern. So Siuan and Moiraine were instant friends in the tower as they actually arrived at the exact same time. Siuan and Moiraine played a good many pranks, always together. They were caught for a number of these and punished together, so much so that it was said that if one was spotted waiting to go into the Mistress of Novices' study, the other was already inside. Siuan and Moiraine were what was called pillow friends, which are basically physical romantic entanglements in the tower, usually just between novices and accepted. As Robert Jordan, the author, explained at a con, because it's never really explicitly stated in the book, well, you put 15-year-old girls in a tower filled with almost entirely women, and their hormones are raging on overdrive, keep them away from men because you can't afford to lose any of them. And what do you think is going to happen? So Siuan and Moraine's pillow friend relationship lasted a little longer than was considered normal since it went into full Aes Sedai, but as far as starting at the beginning of the events of the main series, so book 1, Eye of the World, they had not been in a romantic relationship for some time and are just purely platonic friends through the course of the series. So the romantic relationship in the show is clearly founded on canon, but they just extended it into their adult relationship. Jatara Moroso, the keeper of the stole for the current Amyrlin at the time, so Leanne's job in the show, gave them a foretelling that the dragon had been reborn. Then they were raised to full Aes Sedai soon after. Siuan chose the Blue Aja. The Blue Aja is known for following causes and saving the world. It's actually one of the smaller Ajas, but is known to have the biggest eyes and ears network. Each Aja has an eyes and ears, which is basically obviously a network of spies to inform, so the Blues was the biggest, and Siuan was put in charge eventually of that eyes and ears. And a lot part in the book, it said that she was chosen to lead it because she had always been a natural leader. So Siuan and Moiraine immediately dedicated themselves to finding the dragon reborn in hopes that they would be able to guide him and probably control him. And Moiraine did this by leaving the tower and going out into the world to find him, and Siuan did it by staying and managing affairs within the tower itself. Siuan was the youngest Amyrlin raised at the time she was raised. Aes Sedai have lengthened lives, and most did not get raised Amyrlin until they had been raised to the Shawl, or other words were full Aes Sedai, for at least 70 to 80 years, if not longer. There was a desire for a younger Amyrlin seat because the previous 3 had died after only a few years of being Amyrlin, and whether that was of natural causes or otherwise is debated. Either way, she was raised after only 10 years of being full Aes Sedai when she was about 30 or 31 years old. Who comes here? Who comes here? Who comes here? The woman beside the palanquin tapped her staff 3 times in reply. The Watcher of the Seals, the Flame of Tar Valon, the Amyrlin seat. Why should we watch? For the hope of humankind. Against what do we guard? The shadow at noon. How long shall we guard? From rising sun to rising sun, so long as the wheel of time turns. So after all of this, we now move into events that are largely covered since the beginning of the show, or otherwise since the start of the first book, Eye of the World. And for the most part, overarchingly, these events for Siuan are the same. They just might happen in slightly different circumstances or in particularly different locations. Moiraine and Siuan in the books do hide that they are as close as they are. Again, even though they aren't in a romantic relationship, they are very close friends, and they act very cool towards each other whenever they're seen, just like in the show. And they are hiding that they're still working together, kind of to protect themselves and make it easier for them to move among the tower and keep hidden what their true goals are. They're still really working hard to find the dragon and hopefully control him so that he can fulfill his destiny and become triumphant at the last battle. As a different point, for example, Siuan actually meets Rand not in Tar Valon, but actually she comes to them in Faldara, where the ending events of season 1 happen. The Amyrlin seats come in person. Lan looked at him, his expression as hard and unreadable as a rock. Your lessons are done, sheep herder. He paused then, and Rand almost thought that there was sympathy on his face. That could not be, of course. Better for you if you were a week gone. With that, the warder snatched up his shirt and disappeared down the ladder into the tower. They knew things, had knowledge that could help him, he was sure, and he did not dare ask any of them. He was afraid they had come to gentle him. And afraid they haven't too, he admitted reluctantly. Light, I don't know which scares me more. I think in general in the book there is a lot more fear of Aes Sedai than is present in the show. Rand actually does try to flee from meeting the Amyrlin and is just unsuccessful. That scene though between Rand and Siuan is very fun in the novels. Lan has taught him some tricks and Rand comes off very forward, and I think Siuan says to Moiraine something like, I see Lan has been teaching you some tricks. It's too long of a scene to repeat here, and it's really a part of Rand's story more than Siuan's, so we'll move on. So, 11 years after being raised to the Amyrlin seat, Siuan is deposed. This happens pretty much like in the show, the only tiny difference being that it occurs in Siuan's office rather than in the main hall. Leanne and Siuan are immediately stilled, and Siuan's warder actually dies trying to protect her. I don't actually think we ever saw her warder in the show. Fighting also breaks out among the tower, with warder fighting warder, and some Aes Sedai trying to support Siuan over Aleida. Stilling has a much larger effect in the novels than in the show. Now, while we did explore the idea of stilling a little bit through Moraine's extended shielding and Loghain's gentling, we only really focused on the kind of wanting to kill yourself aspect from Loghain's side with gentling. In the novels, it's very clear that most women do not survive being stilled. The ability to not touch the source anymore is so chilling, so awful, so terrible that it is said most women do not survive a year of being stilled. Additionally, there are physical manifestations of being an Aes Sedai in the novels, which is that they are said to have a certain ageless face. So you can tell who they are because they have this uncanny kind of look to them that is incredibly ageless. When you are stilled, that is taken away. So in the novels, after Siuan and Leanne are stilled, people can't even recognize them because they don't have that ageless face, and they lost about 15 years off their natural age. How they looked after they were stilled. So Min makes a comment that Siuan, who is somewhere, I think in her 40s at this point, looks as young as her, who is in her early 20s. And finally, when she was stilled, she was also no longer bound by the 3 oaths, which is a very big deal in the novels. And as a reminder, the 3 oaths you take upon being Aes Sedai are to speak no word that is not true, to make no weapon with which one man may kill another, and to never use the one power as a weapon except against dark friends or shadow spawn, or in the last extreme defense of her life, the life of her warder, or another Aes Sedai. So obviously the big one here, because the other 2 kind of rely on having the power, is that she can now lie, and she does use this quite a bit to her advantage. So Min is actually the one who saves Siuan and Leanne in the novels. Min is in the tower the entire time because Siuan does not want her to leave because she wants to know of all of Min's viewings. Min gets a lot more viewings for those who can channel in the novels, and so all the Aes Sedai give her tons of viewings, and Siuan think they are very important for the last battle and kind of figuring out things that are going on in the tower. Min sneaks into the dungeons where Siuan and Leanne are being kept and smuggles them out. The contrast of the women's reactions to being stilled, I think, is just a really wonderful exploration. You have Leanne, who refuses to accept that this is happening and is trying to act the same, while Siuan is absolutely determined not to feel sorry for herself and claims she will survive. I am so sorry that I got you into this, Dot. No, she had no right to call her that now. I am so sorry, Leanne. There was a long moment of silence. Are you all right, Mother? Siuan, Leanne. Just Siuan. The grate of a key in the rusty iron lock brought Siuan's head up. Grimly, she forced herself to her feet. Up, Leanne. Get up. After a moment, she heard the other woman complying and muttering to herself between soft moans. In a slightly louder voice, Leanne said, "What good will it do? At least they won't find us huddling on the floor and weeping." She tried to make her voice firm. "We can still fight, Leanne. As long as we are alive, we can fight." "Oh, Light, they stilled me. They stilled me." "Will you age like the rest of us now?" Min asked. Siuan shook her head. "I really don't know. No stilled woman has ever lived long enough to find out. I intend to." Honestly, I had a bunch of other quotes I could read here because this is one of my favorite chapters in the entire series. Just the way that they have to deal with it and escaping is really great. One thing I think it's hard to get a scope of in the show, just because there's just not enough time. They have so few episodes, is how big the world is and how influential the White Tower really is. Like, Siuan is a mover and shaker of the world. People have to pay her respects. Kings, queens, dignitaries, everyone has. The Amyrlin seat is this huge force. And on top of that, Siuan was one of the most powerful Aes Sedai in the tower. Usually Amyrlin seats, I feel like, are pretty strong in the power. So she goes from being this, literally one of the most important people in Randland, which is what we call the world, in case you didn't know, book readers call the world, one of the most influential people in the entire world, to it's taken away in a single moment. She can no longer channel. She's no longer Amyrlin. She is nobody from somebody. And that exploration of how you would deal with that and how anyone else this has happened to, even in lesser circumstances when they weren't Amyrlin, they've killed themselves within a year. You can just tell how ripe that is for character work and how great that growth is. And it's just such an amazing storyline. So they end up getting able to escape Tar Valon, and Siuan actually convinces Logain to come with her. We are going to take a break for today's sponsor, the Folio Society. They are, of course, known for their beautifully crafted special editions of famous and beloved books. Now, if you're new here, you might not know that I'm sort of a fanatic about the book Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. It is in one of my top 3 favorite books of all time. So when the Folio Society reached out asking to send me their new edition of Piranesi, I of course was over the moon. With their patented care to detail, they created a beautiful cover and interior art design that perfectly encapsulates the feeling of the book. It is going to have a permanent spot in full view on my shelf, as you can see right behind me. So check out their new summer 2025 collection that's dropping this week and experience the legacy of beautiful bookmaking with the Folio Society. Okay, I'm going to do actually another spoiler warning here. So previous to this, I have covered the events as they are in the show and up to about book 4 of The Wheel of Time. Going forward, I will be spoiling just Siuan's story for the rest of the 14 novels. Now, I am doing this in a way that I specifically am vague about any other characters that interact with her so that I am not spoiling any other character for the show. So if you are a show-only watcher, I may tell you some very large, overbearing beats that happen, but I personally do not think I am spoiling anything that is happening in the show. If you plan to read the books, know that I am spoiling Siuan's stories for the novels. So depending on how particular you are, I wanted to give another warning for that here. So Siuan and Leanne are able to meet up with the Aes Sedai that are out of the tower that are now considered rebel Aes Sedai, and she is determined to still influence the future of the tower. And very importantly is that most of the Aes Sedai don't realize that she is no longer bound by the oaths and that she can lie, and she uses this definitely to her advantage because people think she always has to tell the truth still. So she manipulates them a lot and basically influences them to set up a rebel white tower, claiming to be the true white tower, and also tells the rebel Aes Sedai that they should raise a very young and manipulable woman to be the new Amyrlin seat of this rebel white tower and make a claim that they are the true tower. She and Leanne also pretend to be on bad terms after the stilling, as if it fractured their relationship, and they do this to further manipulate people, to pretend that they're on opposite sides, when really they are still very much good friends and working together. Eventually, Leanne and Siuan actually get healed from their stilling, which is a huge event in the novels because it has been considered impossible forever, and is a very important plot point that is very cool to witness. But when they are healed, they come back much less powerful. Like, I think it's something like 1/3 of the former power they had, but they can touch the source again. And this creates kind of a weird spot for them to, you know, go from something huge, like I explained earlier, to nothing, to now like sort of something of their former glory. Many sisters had a difficult time with Siuan. Her face was probably the best known in the camp, young enough to have looked proper above an accepted's dress, or a novice's one, for that matter. Siuan could hardly walk a step without sisters staring at her. The once Amyrlin seat, deposed and cut off from Sedar, then healed and restored to at least some ability, when everyone knew that was impossible. Many welcomed her back warmly as a sister once more, for herself and for the miracle that held out hope against what Aes Sedai feared beyond death. But just as many or more offered lukewarm toleration or condescension or both, blaming her for their present situation. She was less than she had been, no longer Amyrlin and no longer anywhere near so strong in the power. It was not cruelty, as the Aes Sedai saw it. The past was the past. What was now was and must be accepted. Anything else only brought greater pain. By and large, Aes Sedai admitted change slowly, but once they did, for most, it was as if things had always been that way. I think that's a great quote that sums up a lot of her character moments. Again, like I said earlier, the way she is determined to not let herself give up despite everyone shunning her and all this that she's been through. And she said, no, even without my power, I'm still me. I am still this great leader. I still know what I want to accomplish. I'm still in my heart of the Blue Aja, and I have this cause and I'm going to follow it. It's a great little story. She also ends up becoming a huge mentor to the new Amyrlin seat they prop up, and I love watching that relationship develop because she initially thinks this person will be very manipulatable and she doesn't have a lot of respect for them, but then grows to respect this person as a powerful force of their own and really works with them to achieve their goals. But as I think the rebel Aes Sedai will be a plot point in the show, I'm not going to say anything else about that for now. and leave it there. During this time with the rebel Aes Sedai, Siuan also develops a romantic relationship with a character named Gareth Bryne. Now, I'm going to keep details light on Gareth because he hasn't been introduced in the show yet, and he still may be. I don't know. So Gareth Bryne actually served Queen Morgase, or Elaine's mom, as a general before he was dismissed by her. He is renowned as a good general and blade master. He also briefly met Siuan when she was Amyrlin, and she got him in trouble for interfering. It was after this dismissal that he has his run-in with Siuan again, and then the rebel Aes Sedai. They enter a romantic relationship, eventually get married, and he becomes her new warder. So Siuan is a very important player in the last battle against the Dark One and ends up playing a very important role, but she also ends up perishing during the last battle. Min had previously seen a viewing in the book series that said that Siuan and Gareth Bryne had to always remain together or else they would die. And at one point, Gareth and Siuan save each other's lives during a previous battle, and Siuan believes that means that viewing is complete and that they no longer have to stay together. However, she leaves to join Min, and Min is like, no, the aura and viewing is still there. It means it hasn't been completed yet. So in the scene I'm about to read, Min is in mortal danger and is being stalked and about to be killed by someone. Then he jerked suddenly and fell over, thrashing. A trickle of blood came from his lips. That, a woman said nearby, a sound of utter distaste in her tone, is something I'm not supposed to know how to do, but stopping someone's heart with the one power is quiet. It requires very little power, surprisingly, which is pertinent to me. Siuan, Min said, you're not supposed to be here. Lucky for you I am, Siuan said with a snort, inspecting the body, staying low. Bah, nasty business that, but if you're going to eat a fish, you should be willing to gut it yourself. What's wrong, girl? You're safe now. No need to look so pale. You're not supposed to be here, Min said. I told you, stay near Gareth Bryne. I did stay near him, almost near as his own small clothes, I'll have you know. We saved one another's lives because of it, so I guess the viewing was right. Are they ever wrong? No, I've told you that, Min whispered. Never. Siuan, I saw an aura around Bryne that meant you had to stay together or the two of you would die. It hangs above you right now. Whatever you think you did, the viewing has not been accomplished yet. It's still there. Siuan stood frozen for a moment. Cawthon is in danger. But I don't care, girl. Nearby, the ground trembled with the force of the one power. The Dominae were fighting back. If Cawthon falls, this battle is lost. I don't care if we both die from this. We must help. Move. So after Siuan saves Min's life and then is the reason that they are able to save Mat's life, she does end up perishing in an explosion. So I hope through hearing her story, albeit in a limited way, that you can see why I came to love Siuan so much and her character arc and her story. She just represents so much strength, and I love her effect and relationship on others of my favorite characters as well, which I covered only briefly to not spoil their character arcs. But I've always loved her relationship with Moiraine as well, and as Moiraine is my #1 favorite character in the Wheel of Time, Siuan was obviously important to me as well. And if you feel like this wasn't enough detail about her life and it sounded really interesting, well, I guess you'll just have to read the books to find out more details. For the most part, I really love their representation of Siuan in the show. I think some of her season 2 stuff being the only exception. I didn't really love how they had Siuan use the Oath Rod against Moiraine in that way, and I felt like that fight between them was never satisfactorily resolved for me, and it didn't quite go with their characters, in my opinion. So that was the only thing I didn't really love. But otherwise, I really loved how they explored Siuan and Moiraine's relationship. And I really like how they were able to get through that she was all about her cause and, wanting to protect the Dragon Reborn to her ultimate death. I will say about Moiraine and Siuan's romantic relationship is one thing that really helped me with that is that in the book, I hate Moraine's canonical romance. I always hated it. So in the show, when they put them together, I was like, oh my gosh, we're not going to get Moraine's crappy relationship. Thank goodness. And actually, one of the first things I thought when they end up killing Siuan, besides being so sad, was, oh no, does that mean they can still do Moraine's other relationship? No, I thought I escaped. Anyway, as far as killing Siuan goes, I'm obviously disappointed we aren't going to get to see all that I just explained, particularly her journey with Leanne and how she kind of overcomes these limitations. However, as I previously said, I do think they explored a lot of these feelings with Moraine's second season arc, and I think a lot of the things that they need Siuan to do, they could just have Leanne do instead. Additionally, they have so little time in the show, they probably weren't going to be able to explore it much anyway, and it probably has a greater emotional impact. Killing her, both her effect on how the tower is really going to be different, and also its obvious effect on Moiraine. They have made Moiraine a bigger character in the show, and focused more on her inner life than just her relationship to helping Rand. And so because of that, this obviously gives something else for Moiraine to struggle and go through in the next season. And so from that perspective, I also understand it for the show. I remember hearing a rumor that maybe the actress, Sophie, wanted to leave the show and that's why they had to kill her off. But I did research and I couldn't find any evidence of that. So I just wanted to mention here in case anyone else had heard that. But I couldn't find anything. So I think this is the showrunner's choice just to do this for a swan story. The wheel of time turns and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one age, called the Third Age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, the show killed off Siuan Sanche. This was not the book ending. There are neither beginnings nor endings in the turning of the Wheel of Time, but it was an ending. Thanks for letting me be dramatic there for a moment. If you are a book reader here, just to remind yourself how great Siuan is, please tell me if you loved her as much as I did in the books. And if you are a show watcher, let me know what you think, knowing what her story was. Tell me what you think about Siuan in the show. I want to hear it all. And as always, if you like these kind of deep dives, please like and subscribe. That is the best way to support me. And if you want to see what I'm currently reading, as well as other nerdy rants, you can check me out on Instagram at bookborn.reviews. I'll see you next time. Bye.